I take privilege in inviting Dr. Sohum Sohani Garu from Milwaukee School of Engineering to deliver his keynote session on meaningful and impactful research in engineering education.
It's a pleasure to be here. I will be using PowerPoint for the next 10 minutes, but my breakout session, if anyone's interested in coming, is entirely think, pair, share. There will be no slides, and there will be discussion and interaction throughout. So it's a joy to be here. For anybody who is here for the first time, attending ICTIE for the first time, please raise your hand. Oh, lots and lots of good, because I'm repeating some stuff from 4 years ago. I'm just joking. So the reason why I asked you is because I also at one time was a first-time attendee for ICTIE. I did not know anybody here. I felt a little intimidated. Thanks. And yesterday when I came here, I was so filled with joy to see people that I had known for such a long time. So it is when you work with people, that's how you build your networks. That's how you really start to feel like you belong in a community. And so this is, I was telling everybody yesterday, whoever I was meeting with, this is my community. I know 40, 50 people here. They know me. It feels great to be here. So it's a privilege, and I want to thank Krishna for asking me to give this keynote. It's a great joy to be here. And also I want to correct my affiliation. When I was asked to give this keynote, I was with the Milwaukee School of Engineering. Just a week ago, I joined HITAM. So on my slides now, you can see the HITAM logo. I'm now the director of the Hyderabad Institute of Technology and Management. So don't worry. Thank you. I did not expect applause for that. All right. So you might be wondering, he's still stuck on his first slide. It's already 2 minutes, but I just have a few slides. So the title of the talk is about impactful research, right? So let's ask a few questions. What is impactful research, first of all? So there are some characteristics of impactful research. It provides new and useful knowledge. What do we mean by that? Well, it builds on what is already known and adds to it, right? It is also interesting enough to have direct real-world application or translation, as Sudarshan was saying, or it should at least be interesting enough for other scholars to build upon it. Not all research can directly be implemented or has direct application, but good research can also serve as the basis for other good research, which eventually, hopefully, will have real-world application, right? Follows appropriate methods for collecting and analyzing data, right? And most importantly, contextualizes findings with respect to what is already known. Now, hidden behind all of this, these 4 bullets, 5 bullets, whatever, is this idea of actually doing the research, right? What do I mean by that? Well, the obvious prerequisite is to know your subject matter. This is what often is missing. So one of the things I have done over the last 10 years is I've been editor of JEET, the Journal of Engineering Education Transformations. I'm still on the managing board of the journal. I've seen the papers that are coming in, and it really emphasizes the second bullet point on this slide, which is everyone wants to write research papers, but nobody wants to read them, right? So if we go back one slide, to do all of this stuff, right, you really need to know your subject matter. If you do flipped classroom and write a paper about it, fine. It's not a bad paper to write, but it should have some use, right? It should be useful for someone. It should contribute to the existing knowledge. If you don't know what the existing knowledge is, how can you claim to contribute to the existing knowledge, right? How can you claim that you have identified a gap, you have done a study to fill that gap, and then make your own contribution? So this is, I think, extremely important. This is, I think, the most important slide of this talk. I promise to give you no new knowledge today. But to remind you of things that you already know and should be doing. So a quick example of what is engineering education research. We often get this problem as well. Bill Williams yesterday gave a keynote about statistics of submissions to the prestigious journals of the world in engineering education research. Majority of the rejections for those were because they were out of scope, right? So it is important for us to know what is EER and what is not EER, right? And so last time I gave a keynote, I had many examples, 5 different slides of this type. But today I'll just give one. So interestingly, flipped classroom is on my slide as well. So a study showing that students in my course benefited from a flipped classroom pedagogical approach. Is this an EER paper or is it not an EER paper? How many think it's an EER paper? A few hands going up. How many think it's not an EER paper? Interesting. So you have made some assumptions, right, based on the title, which is good, very smart. So let me expand a little bit. So it is not EER if it is just explaining what approach I took and presents just data showing that, yeah, students did well on a quiz or they were happy with my course or whatever X thing that you're measuring, right? That is not EER. But it can be EER, right? If it builds on prior research, same things as those that were in the previous slide. It builds on prior research, provides new and useful results for somebody, right? Follows standard data collection and analysis methods, which are aligned with the research question that you're asking, right? If it does all of those things, then it is an EER, engineering education research paper, okay? The other thing I want to point out, it's probably not new and useful if it is too generic, right? What do I mean by that? This is again the bane of most papers submitted even to JEET. It is very generic. So as I was saying, based on just the title, if this was the title, the flipped classroom pedagogical approach, that is far too generic. Everybody knows, as Sudarshan has pointed out, that flipped classroom is a very good pedagogical technique, right? It is. There are so many papers already on that topic. You saying again that you did it in your classroom and it worked well is not really contributing anything more, right? It's just one of another 100 papers that are already saying that. So again, it comes down to what is the specific aspect of flipping that you're doing, right? Are you considering something that is very specific? And for you to know what would be interesting, again, you have to have read a lot about flipped classroom pedagogical techniques, what other people have published about that, and then identify something that is special about your implementation of flipped classroom so that that could be useful for somebody to actually read. And that brings up I guess the second most important point, which one could argue is the most important point, which is who would benefit from reading my paper, right? Keeping in mind, if you want to write a good research paper and want to do impactful research, you really want to understand who is going to read your paper, right? Start from that. If you are writing a practice-based paper, then that is fine. You can still do that. It's the need. I think people want to have practice-based papers. These are people who are going to try to replicate what you did in your classroom. Give them that information that they need. If you are contributing something new in the research domain in EER, it is not a practice-based paper, but you have discovered something new about flipped classrooms, then you should write your paper with that reader in mind, right? Somebody who is an EER researcher, not just a practitioner. So keep that in mind, keep your reader in mind when you think about what kind of paper you want to write. And so again, same thing, kind of repeat slide here, just in case someone is not paying attention 2 minutes ago. Topics tend to be too broad. You want to, and that's again mainly because people have not taken the time to really understand what is known in this area. And that is why they end up being very superficial. I tried, whatever, team-based learning, I tried flipped classroom, I tried this, I tried that, and so on. So papers mostly tend to be not written with the audience or the reader in mind. And once again, I'll say the same thing. Practice-based papers are not bad. I have written several practice-based papers, some of which were pretty bad, but some were good. And they can end up being very useful, or they can end up being reports that nobody is going to read because nobody finds them useful, right? So in your mind, try to make that distinction as you're setting forth in starting to write your paper. Okay, so let's transition a little bit and look at what does it take to do good research, right? What are the pillars of research, so as to say? Typically, there is some sort of a funding agency that is going to provide support monetarily to do the research. There will be a place where the research gets done, typically a university or a national lab or something like that. There are people who do the research, right? Faculty, PhD students, undergraduate students, professional societies like IEEE, ASEE, others that bring people together to share and discuss research, come up with new ideas, and so on. And publication outlets like peer-reviewed journals and conferences like this one, for dissemination, right? So let's consider this in terms of engineering education research, specifically from the Indian perspective. Do we have funding agencies that fund this kind of research? I have heard mixed things about it. Mostly the answer has been not really. But I think at the central government level, I think there is some funding. Maybe at local levels, there might be some funding. Institutions, we have no shortage of institutions that want to do or want to house engineering education research. We have faculty. PhD students is something we probably don't have in EER. That is something that is more common in the US, where people are getting PhDs in engineering education, whereas here it is less common. We have a few places that do that. We have some professional societies. Maybe in place of the professional societies, we have IUCEE, obviously. We have some additional things, like Javed gave a workshop today on EER. I've been part of a long-running course that we offer annually through IUCEE, which engages everybody in engineering education research. I know many people who are attending here have actually been part of that course. And then we have publication outlets. So JEET, which I mentioned earlier, the Journal of Engineering Education Transformations, is our premier outlet for EER in India at this point, right? So let's talk about JEET for a little bit, and that will be the end of my talk. So JEET stands for the Journal of Engineering Education Transformations. It is Scopus indexed, supported by IUCE and RIT, the Rajaram Bapu Institute of Technology. The managing board includes myself, Krishna, Sandeep Desai, any associate editors here from JEET? Yes, good. So backbone of JEET are the associate editors, and let's actually give a round of applause for Sandeep Desai and the associate editors. Sandeep is not here with us today, but he does, I will say, absolutely the lion and the lioness's share of the work for JEET. Tremendous. And then Sushma, we heard earlier, she's on the board, as well as Hemlata. Positives, it is peer reviewed. It aims to maintain high quality. Okay. It is Scopus indexed. Negatives, review process takes long in some cases, but this is an issue that is not unique to JEET, right? Anybody who has submitted to EJE understands the length of time it takes to review, right? So I did want to give you some facts and figures about JEET, because there is a perception that JEET is not doing well. It takes too long to review papers when we submit to JEET. 1652 is the total number of submissions received by JEET in the last 3 years. It's a tremendous amount, right? Don't clap. It is not clap worthy. It's actually a problem for JEET, right? Too many submissions. That's the problem. Out of these, 149 are still under review. So this is within the last 3 years. But just to clarify, 110 out of the 149 were submitted in 2024. Only 39 from 2023 are still in the review process. And mainly because it is in the third round of review or whatever, peer review has gone through twice, authors are still making changes, so on and so forth. But would I want something to be in the system for 2.5, 3 years? Probably not, right? It would be better if we could wrap up sooner. But when I show you the numbers, it will become obvious why things are the way they are. So we have 30 associate editors, out of which 26 are active at this point. 4 have sort of retired in place, let us say. We have 973 registered reviewers, out of which roughly only 150 are really active. So one of the biggest challenges, and the reason why I've incorporated this into the keynote, is again to reach out to you as the community for EER, right? Who are the reviewers? At the end of the day, it's you, me, it is us. We are reviewing each other's papers. That's the whole idea behind peer review, right? So if out of 900 plus reviewers, if only 150 are actually responding to the AE's requests, that is not a good situation, right? So if you are a dormant reviewer, please respond, please start reviewing. And this is a number that I found from Bill's presentation yesterday. 1,030 papers have been published since 1970 when JEET came around until 2022. So it is a significant volume, it is a significant undertaking, and it is not possible for just Sandeep and a few associate editors to really manage all this, okay? So we need your help. That is one of the important points I want to make. Last slide. I did want to point out some exciting changes that are coming. A few years ago, we switched to a backend system that was not really a very good backend system. We learned from our mistake. We're switching back to what we previously had. We're moving to mostly to print, from print to online only. There are some colleges still requesting a print version, but hopefully we'll just stick to online and with open access. So that will help with citing the papers and getting access to the papers. We're considering an honorarium for AEs, possibly considering honorarium for reviewers, although I'm dead against that idea myself, but the board is split in terms of how we want to do this. And in the breakout session, we will talk more about what else can be done. So I want to dedicate the breakout session to two questions. One, how to do impactful research, but also the other half I want to focus on how can we improve JEET, since it is a pillar of doing impactful research in engineering education. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your perspectives. Your inputs has greatly enhanced our understanding. May I request Dr. Kode Sandhya ma'am to felicitate Dr. Sohum Sohoni, sir. Thank you.